Okay, well, let's get started with some introductions real quick. First of all, everybody, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. I'm really excited about today's webinar. My name is Elliott Leonard. I'm a BI engineer here at GUIDEcx. And for the past several years, I have been knee deep in data. I absolutely love data, working with it, especially with customer success and customer experience. But my guest today, if I'm knee deep, my guest today is practically neck deep. He's drowning in data. I'm really excited to be interviewing Alma today. Alma, did you want to give an introduction to our audience?
All right. My name is Alma Ohene-Opare. I'm also, as Elliott said, neck deep in data. I am a senior technical solutions manager here at GUIDEcx. And my data journey started many, many years ago when I started working for Microsoft. And I've done that throughout my career until today. So I'm excited to be here and ready to share some of the things I know will be valuable to all of you. So looking forward to a great webinar.
I'm excited. As Alma said, we're going to be talking about 5 different strategies that you can employ today to use data more in your business, right? And so we're mostly going to be covering customer experience, onboarding, and success. And to begin, we want to talk about how there's so much potential, right? There's so much data being generated in today's day. Alma, a question that I've always had, and this is maybe an icebreaker for you, but over the last decade of you've worked with small companies, you've worked with the largest corporations, you've consulted with so many companies. In your opinion, how do people actually harness the potential energy that there is with data? What sets apart the great companies from the mediocre and okay companies when they're using their data?
Thank you for that question. So data is now a buzzword, right? Everybody's talking about data, and a lot of businesses are contemplating this whole idea of a digital transformation and how they can begin to utilize data as a way to actually drive the kind of outcomes they want to see in their businesses. However, what I've found in my experience is that a lot of people they're drowning in data without really knowing exactly how to leverage the data they're getting to make the kind of difference they want to see in their business. And so this is where the strategies come in. It's not just about having data. It's also about figuring out how to best leverage that data to give you the kind of desired outcome. And so today I'm thinking about how you can use data to customize your clients' experiences, to improve efficiency of whatever product or service you're delivering, and then also leveraging data as a way to enhance client retention. And we'll go a little deeper into these, but this is the potential of data. Data gives you the ability to accomplish some of these things if you use it right. And that's a big if.
Yeah, right. And I'm really excited for this. I think when I look at these 3 different benefits, it really gets me excited, right? Customized client experiences, improved efficiency, more client retention. This is everything that people want in today. And so, as Alma said, we have 5 different strategies that we'd love to talk about today. And Alma has come up with these over the years. And so I'm going to let him intro these real quick. And we're going to do a deep dive on each one of these strategies.
All right. So let's start with strategy number 1, which is leveraging customer analytics. So a lot of times as businesses, we are onboarding customers, we're bringing new customers into our platforms and so on. And the question is, are we taking the opportunity to leverage the data around the client's experience such that we can use that data to more effectively, help our onboarding process or more effectively deliver the services that we're trying to do? So we'll be talking about that briefly. Then we will talk about data transparency for clients. A lot of times when we talk about data, usually most people are thinking about data they can use internally for their business decision-making, but there is a part that clients play in that process. And so making data transparent and making sure your clients have access to the right data is important as well. Number 3, implementing real-time data alerts. Alerts are very important because we have a huge mountain of data and nobody has the time to sit around looking into it. And so you need to be able to implement data alerts that come just in time to answer the questions that you need. Then number 4 is utilizing feedback loops. Once you have the data, once you've analyzed the data, how do you then create a process where you can then feed that data back into your business so that you can make the changes that the data warrants? And then finally, we're going to talk about security and compliance. And this is, if you've been listening to the news lately, you're hearing every now and then companies, even the US government, getting hacked. And so data security is very important. And that's something we'll focus a few minutes on as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. In addition to the strategies, we're also going to talk about some key performance indicators that we here at GUIDEcx monitor for our own business. And so we're going to be giving away a little bit of the secret sauce. We hope you enjoyed that as well. So let's dive into our first strategy, leveraging customer analytics. Alma, I feel like we're really at the cusp where there's so much data out there, and especially with customer experience and customer onboarding data, we're just getting started with this, right? Can you talk about why do you think this strategy is so important?
This is important. And if you're a business that is not collecting customer analytics, you're missing out, because that's a treasure trove of insight into how your customer is using your platform or how your customer is even coming to you. So there's a lot of data sometimes that sales will collect about a business that allows you to create potentially an ideal customer profile. But once that customer comes in, that is when you validate that information. So when you start collecting data around customer behavior, then you can better understand customer behavior. And then with that understanding, you can begin to anticipate needs. And I think one of the most important things for clients is to feel like they're being handled by someone who understands their market, understands their industry, understands their pain points. And so being able to anticipate their needs by collecting that analytics ahead of time is really important and creates trust between you and your customer. And then another thing is tailoring the onboarding process or whatever process your business has to the customer's needs. Now, a business that cannot or is not versatile enough to tailor the needs of the business with, or the needs of their clients based on the data they're getting is really missing out. And so leveraging customer analytics allows you to be able to have enough information to begin to tailor customer projects and other customer data to whatever you're delivering to them. And what I've seen here is that, especially for startups, what we found is that startups rely on this customer analytics as a tool to determine where to go next with the platform. And at GUIDEcx, we are changing every day because of that customer data, and we're planning our roadmap based on the data we're getting from our customer analytics.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alma, a quick question I had. I feel like this can be a very daunting strategy for smaller businesses, especially, right? There's so much data out there. And what advice do you have for smaller businesses where they're just starting with customer analytics and they feel overwhelmed? Like, how do you, what's the best way to start with this strategy?
I will say the very best way is to do something more today than you did yesterday. And so it starts with starting small. So don't wake up and try to boil the ocean with data, right? Start with a metric that you know can drive change in your organization and start tracking it. And so one of the metrics I love to tell people to track is time to value for their customers. So time to value is a very key metric that allows you to know how quickly your customer coming in is getting value from your platform. If that time to value is too long, it means customers have the potential to get frustrated in the process and lose trust in whatever service you're providing. And so you could start with a key metric like time to value, and then slowly build up from there and add more metrics that are necessary for your business as you get more sophisticated over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Really starting small. I mean, that sounds like that's really the solution. And like Alma said, we here at GUIDEcx, we kind of drink our own champagne. We believe that having customer analytics is very important. And one of our most important metrics is time to value. You can see here on the left, we'll measure average time to value for our clients, and we'll have a little gauge showing, how many days it takes for them to onboard, to get that first value during their initial onboarding. And then we can also trend it over time as well, too, right? So suddenly we can see, hey, in January, we're at 31 days, but later on in the year, we're getting better. And so I would really highly recommend that you create this kind of customer onboarding health score. And it can be really simple, right? It could be a Google Sheet to start off with. You don't have to boil the ocean. It can be very simple, like Alma was saying. Love that. The second strategy, and this is, again, I love this one so much, data transparency for clients. Alma, this is also, I feel like, a very new paradigm where in the past we were very hesitant to share data with our clients, right? We had these awesome BI tools for our internal teams, but we didn't want to share it with clients. What do you think about this strategy here?
So data transparency is critical. And the example that we all have in real life is your Amazon app when you buy something from Amazon, for instance. So back in the day, when you buy something, you don't necessarily know when it's going to arrive, and you don't know when you need to be at home to receive the package. But Amazon and some pizza delivery shops and other places have made it such that I have data that is available to me as a consumer, as a client, so I can see what is happening. So the same way as a business, you need to identify the pieces of data that your clients need to understand how their process, their onboarding process is going, but not only that, but to also understand how your process or your service is working for them. And I know sometimes, it takes a lot of time for clients to adopt whatever we're helping them with. And so we may be hesitant to share that data because maybe the metrics are not looking so good. But it is important to analyze what is absolutely necessary to make sure the client is constantly on board. And the reason we need to do that is for these four topics that I put in here. Empowering clients, so putting them in the driver's seat to know how their onboarding is going, or to know how their adoption of the platform is going. Creating visibility, so just like Amazon, I get a notification that tells me, hey, my package is 10 stops away, so I can be prepared for it. And then also assessing adoption, seeing how people are using the platform and whether they're getting the value. And then finally, measuring return on investment. A lot of companies struggle with being able to quantify the return on investment for their clients. And so the first thing is to create an understanding of what return on investment looks like, and then provide that data to your client. So come renewal time, you can say, hey, here is your return on investment, right? So for instance, I do a lot of custom reporting, and every time I do the custom reporting, I ask people, how much time does this save you in your business? Once they give me that time, I say, okay, if someone were doing this job, how much will you be paying them? And so we put some monetary value against that and share that information with them. So when they come to renewal, a CSM can look at that and say, hey, we saved you $150,000 over the last year because of the things that we did. So sharing data with clients, it's a huge opportunity for businesses to be able to make sure the clients are on board with how you're helping them.
Yeah, I love that. I really, Alma, that Amazon example you gave really resonated with me, right? Because I just this last week, I had a package that was running late. It was an air mattress for my brother who was going to sleep over for a night, and it was running late. And so I was able to assess, like, oh, I actually had to cancel the package, go and pick something up. And I wasn't mad at Amazon. Late packages happen all the time, but the fact that they let me know and they were transparent about it really builds trust. And so that's what we talk about here, is that really transparency fosters trust within an organization and within a relationship. And an example we have here at GUIDEcx is we have this customer-facing portal that we like to call Compass, where basically a client at any time can go in and self-serve. They can see what tasks are assigned to them. They can go look at dashboards to see how the implementation of their software is, and it makes them feel comfortable, right? It makes them feel heard, and it's just very transparent. And so we really preach self-service reporting. For me, Alma, I still feel like people can be hesitant. Do you have any advice for people who are hesitant to share that data? What advice could you offer there?
Once again, like I said, start small and then gain your clients' trust. Help them understand that, this is the reason why we're sharing the data. We want you to be a partner with us in understanding how things are going. My philosophy is the way to a successful project implementation is to remove ambiguity as much as possible. And the way you do that is by being transparent with the data, so that everybody's on the same page. So we're all reading from the same book, and there's no hidden understanding or things that don't make sense, because we're already proactively providing the insight that they need.
Yeah, no, I love that. Okay, so let's move on to this next one, which is also very near and dear to my heart: implementing real-time data alerts. This is so awesome because I feel like we're in this day and age where data can come in real time, and we can use that data to create actions in real time as well, right? So Alma, what do you have for us for this strategy?
Yeah, there used to be a time when you would go to a board meeting and you would ask about data and say, hey, I need the numbers for this. And then IT or the analyst will tell you, oh, it will take about 2 weeks to get you that data. Now, that was the old world. And a lot of businesses, unfortunately, especially small businesses, are still in that world. One of the things my experience has taught me is you go into even some of these large companies and you think they have a sophisticated analytics team or something like that. And you go and find out, there's a little old lady in the corner who is working on some giant Excel sheet that hasn't been updated for 6 years. So data alerting is really important. There's a mountain of data and nobody has the time to go and fish through all the data. So what I say is, first, identify the metrics that are necessary to run your business on a daily basis, and then create the thresholds that you need to be alerted on. So for instance, if I know that I want to keep my CSAT at 90% positive, then normally my advice is don't wait until it gets to 90% to get an alert. Set it a little lower so that you know that you need to respond very quickly. And what this does for you is it saves your sanity initially, first. It saves your sanity so you don't have to deal with living inside of your reports every day. But it allows you to respond faster to customer issues. And response time is almost always the thing that comes up when customers talk about their experience with a product or company. When they get responses very quickly, that's really important. And so it leads to faster response time. And then proactive problem solving. Imagine that your customer calls you and says, I feel like we're going to struggle here. And imagine being able to say to them, we're already on it. We knew this last week and we've already made adjustments because you were alerted at the right time. And in GUIDEcx, we have a feature called status change reasons. So when somebody goes in and they're stuck on a task, they can go and change the status to stuck. And as soon as they do that, we have alerts that go about so that everybody who is on that project knows that somebody is stuck, and then they can read the reason and be able to take proactive action to ensure that that person gets unstuck. And so this is if you're not doing real-time data alerts, you are leaving a lot of productivity on the table. That could come in handy when you're renewing with your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, Alma, like this is a paradigm shift, right? I remember my first job out of college working with business objects and PeopleSoft, where those reports really came in like 2 weeks later at the most, right? They came in much later than that. And so we here at GUIDEcx, we love real-time alerts. And this KPI that we're showing here, it's a KPI paradigm that we like to call managing by exception, where basically, like Alma was saying, when you have this data, you can make actions and take more intelligent actions quicker. And so in this example here, we have a chart where we're tracking service issues and churn rate of customers over time. And anytime these service issues, the green bar, gets above a certain level, it'll actually fire off an alert. And that could be a text message or a Slack alert to a manager or a CSM saying, hey, go take a look at this customer. They're experiencing more service issues than normal. And that way we can more proactively predict what churn is going to be for a client. And so I like to see this as like the data at the point of decision, right? What we're giving data into the hands of our end users. And the fact is, they're not going to be living in reports all the time, right? A lot of the time they're working with customers, they're on Zoom calls, they need to be alerted when something happens. And so having real-time alerts, I think is super powerful.
Exactly. And I tell workers as well, I say to them, if you know the metrics that your manager wants you to hit, or the metrics that your manager is looking at every day, then what you should do is set your alerts so that they're just 10% below his threshold, so that before your manager comes to your office to tell you what's going wrong, you're already on it. You are the one coming to his office saying, these are the things we need to do in order to shore up this client or that client, and so on and so forth. For you as a business, this will help your business manage your issues better. But for your clients, it would almost be like magic to them when you come to them with already knowing what is going on and having a solution prepared.
That's like an ultimate customer experience,
really,
right?
Really, like we talked about helping with retention, that really is the kind of thing that clients really like to see.
Yeah. A final question I had here was, how do you determine what's noise for an alert and what's actually actionable? Do you have any advice how do we kind of filter out the noise? I'm thinking about on my phone where I have hundreds of alerts. How do we know what the right alerts are for a business?
This will differ from business to business. But the main thing is to create an owner for each of the metrics that you have. Okay, so let somebody be responsible for the metric so that when they set an alert, they know exactly the playbook that they need to go by when that alert is triggered. And so don't, inundate one person with all the alerts in the company. Make sure that you have people who own the different metrics so that they are responsible for taking action when that alert is triggered.
Got it. Clear ownership. That makes sense. This actually kind of goes hand in hand with our next strategy about utilizing feedback loops, because when you're creating those alerts, it's usually a cross-functional project, right? It's our customer success teams working with data teams and product teams. And you need to have these feedback loops in place within these teams and also with your customers. So Alma, what's so important about this strategy, do you think?
So there is something that I learned a long time ago. It's a Japanese term called Kaizen. Kaizen means continuous improvement. And what data allows you to do is to take information and then leverage that information as a catalyst for the change that you're going to make in the future. And so data utilizing feedback loops means that you need to create a process in your organization to consume the data you're getting and to actually apply that data into future releases, into process improvements, into the departments that actually need that data. I have worked for companies where, as a frontline consultant, I am seeing challenges that clients are having, but then I don't have a seat at the table to pass that information to the decision makers who are deciding what bugs to fix or what new features to implement. So that's a failure in utilizing a feedback loop. I think analytics should have a seat at the table in decision-making relating to the company so that they can feed the data they're collecting into a process whereby that data is used to better the customer experience, to better the process, to better the company as a whole. And so one way I like to do that is, especially in bigger companies, I recommend that you have data owners in each department so that analytics can easily feed data to those data owners. Those data owners understand the context, understand the priority for that team, and then can take that data to the right stakeholders to ensure that that data is utilized to actually make the changes that are necessary.
Yeah. So it sounds like this is definitely like a very collaborative process. Like you're saying, customer experience gets that feedback from a customer, product actions it, maybe engineering is involved, and then analytics is embedded within the organization to work and to first of all show that feedback in real time or in a timely manner, right? I think oftentimes the issue is that we're not showing feedback as often as we could, right? Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly. And at Guide, we really think another good KPI for definitely looking at feedback loops with your customers is something like a customer satisfaction score or an NPS survey. And one of the things that we do here is we'll actually measure CSAT throughout different stages of the customer lifecycle, right? So right after sales, during implementation, a year into their contract when they're with their customer success manager, we'll actually look at how CSAT changes over time. And it allows us to create charts like this where we can measure positive CSAT, see what it was the previous month, how it's trending over time. And we'll send out surveys that look like this, like very simple, plain surveys. And so I think this is great advice for anybody, right? You can start sending out these surveys pretty much instantly, right? CSAT or NPS, I think are both great metrics here. What do you think about this, Alma?
Exactly. CSAT is the report card to all the efforts that you're doing as a business, right? And so if your efforts in all the other parts of your business are not translating into a good CSAT score, then something is amiss. So this is part of the whole idea of the feedback loop, is understanding that when we make changes, those changes have to actually make an impact in our customers' life such that they're willing to give us positive reviews. If we don't do that, then we're missing something. There's something lost in translation. So anytime, I'll give this as a general rule, when you create a metric, always figure out what to do when the metric doesn't respond as you expect. There has to be a plan. You need to build a playbook around the metric to say, when this happens, this is our next action, right? And what that allows you to do as well is when people leave the company and somebody else comes and takes on that role, they already have a playbook when they see that metric hit a certain threshold. And so all this is important to track for continuity, for feedback, for customer satisfaction, and overall customer success.
Yeah, I love it. Man, we're just flying through this half hour. So we're going to go on to our last strategy real quick, which is a very important one. Like Alma alluded to earlier, data security is becoming increasingly important, right? How many times in the news have we seen security breaches with data? So I know this maybe is an underemphasized strategy, so we'd love to talk about this. Alma, what do you think about this one?
All right, so data security is important, and that goes without saying. And I think most people would accept that, right? Data security is important, but sometimes it has a stigma of being very expensive and difficult to deploy, right? But from my perspective, it needs to start at the basic level of your company, which is understanding data, making sure your employees understand data and having basic data literacy. And then from there, extrapolating and getting more complex, especially when you're dealing with customer data. So customer data needs to be protected with the utmost security. And what I've found in some of the work I've done over the years is sometimes the customer does not know what they're doing with respect to how they need to protect their data. So as an analyst, I can ask a customer to give me a report, let's say on invoicing. And then every now and then I'll get a report, an Excel sheet or something sent to me that contains personal identifiable information. So somebody's social security number is in there, or somebody's personal home address, or something to that effect. As businesses, we need to create a data policy that allows not only internal people in our company, but also our clients to know what data they can send to us and how we're going to treat their data once we receive it. There are rules and regulations around this. I am not necessarily an expert in all the rules that are necessary. So wherever your jurisdiction is, make sure you understand the rules for compliance so you can comply with those rules. But the most important thing is when you start talking about data security, it builds trust with your client. They understand that you know what you're doing. You're thinking proactively. You're preparing them for success by warning them of some of the pitfalls that can happen with data. And then also internally as a business, you should make sure that you're only making data available to people who need it. So you don't overshare data. So there's this concept of data democracy, but then in that paradigm, you still have to have some rules around who needs to see what, so that one, people are not overwhelmed with too much data, but also people are not given data that is inappropriate for them to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are running short on time, but I wanted to make sure I could show these questions that when you're starting on your data compliance and security strategy, take a look at these questions. And like Alma said, I think we all agree that it is important to foster good data democracy within your organization, while also remembering that this security, right? I loved Alma's example, right? Getting PII data sent to you. Make sure you're careful about that kind of stuff too. So I know we're coming up on time. Alma, I wanted to make sure I can give you a final couple minutes for any parting advice to our audience.
All right. So my parting advice is this. This should not be more difficult than it sounds. Like I said in the beginning, do something more than you did yesterday. Find a metric that your business runs on and start tracking that metric. Think about your customer and how to share relevant data with your customer so that they're partners with you in actually achieving your goal. Make sure your data is secure. Make sure you're feeding that data back into the loop so that everybody is benefiting and the company is benefiting from the data you're collecting. So if you begin to use these strategies, it's going to take some time. And for some businesses, it may cause a little bit of heartburn in the beginning, but eventually it will begin to be par for the course and everybody will be operating at a high level because you will only be focused on the things that actually move the needle for your company and for your clients.
Oh, great. Alma, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. I learned so much. Like I said, your wealth of knowledge, all the different experiences that you've had throughout your career. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone else for joining us today during the webinar. We hope you learned something here. Like Alma said, just wanted to echo, make sure you start small, right? Even if you're the smallest company who's just starting in customer onboarding, customer experience, starting small, maybe that's a Google sheet, maybe that's a metric that you track daily. Things like that really do move the needle.